Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara. This is Barbara Talks Some More. This is my second channel. Be sure to check out my original channel called Barbara Talks. Okay. Over there I go over astrology, metaphysics, the metaphysical world. I like to go live over there as well. Over here I go over public figure natal chart readings, synastry readings for public figures. Honestly, whatever comes through to talk about. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe to both channels if you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progress natal chart reading, mini natal chart reading, mini synastry reading. The information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. You guys can go on my website, you select the readings tab, and email window should pop up after you guys have selected the reading you guys would like. Okay, so you send me an email and we will go from there. The way my readings look, basically it's how I do these readings here. These readings here are more synonymous to my mini natal chart and mini synastry readings, kind of going over first impressions first, whatever jumps out at me when I first pull up the charts. Okay, but even in those minis, you guys can always ask if there's any specific thing you guys want to know about. Okay, otherwise I go over first impressions first. Okay, same thing in the full-blown natal chart reading, progress natal chart reading, synastry reading. I go over absolutely every single thing, okay, in the natal charts. And same thing, if there's anything you guys want me to focus on, you guys have any specific questions, okay, anything you guys really want to know about, you guys can even ask those questions as well for those readings. Okay, and then I send you guys the video. You guys can watch it as many times as you'd like. So today we're going to be looking at Drake's birth chart. Honestly, I was not expecting to do this reading, but as usual, kind of what I tell you guys for all of my readings, it's usually the person's energy that I've hooked into. Okay, and it kind of is lingering, right? Because I'm focusing on their energy and I'm like, okay, let's just, look at the birth chart and see what's going on. I pull up the charts and I'm like, might as well do the reading. You know what I mean? So it's interesting because actually it was in my live last week. One of you guys mentioned how Drake has Mars in Aquarius, and I always know that he is a Scorpio as well. So right away that made me hook into his energy because I was like, that's really interesting, that whole square situation he's got going on there. Because I was talking about the Aquarius and Scorpio square, okay, how it's challenging, especially for people who have Scorpio energy taking place in their chart, okay, especially again when this is in the personal planets, or even let's say it's the rising, descendant, IC, or midheaven axis. Okay, so it definitely is a challenge when you have these two energies taking place, because the Scorpio need is always for merging depth, right? They are looking for literally that like soul merging experience is really what it is. And then Aquarius is all about freedom and individuality and independence and doing your own thing. So I always find it interesting when someone has this square in their chart, because it always creates this push-pull, okay, within the personality of the person, right? They want the closeness. It's literally like a cat, right? They want the closeness. They want you to leave them alone, right? Not like a clingy cat, of course, okay? What I found interesting in Drake's chart, actually, before I even get into that, let me give you his birth information. He actually got an AA rating, which is considered to be excellent. So I'm curious to know like how, this goes down. Do they ask them for the birth information, when they become a celebrity, to like put it online, or how do people get this information, or how does it end up online? But anyways, it's considered to be really, really good. Okay, excellent, actually. So we're going to go with this information. Basically for Drake, I have him here as October 24th, 1986, born at 2:31 a.m. in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. So wild, because ever since I hooked into his energy, I swear these phones are reading our mind. Okay, I mean, I heard that once, that there's like a little AI version of us in the AI universe because of the cameras on our phones. They're like measuring our eye movements to see like, do we like something, do we not like something? That's why the phones are pretty much able to predict your next movement, right? So anyway, since I hooked into his energy, I've been having all his stuff pop up on my feed. Okay, so I found that really interesting. He did have that new album come out recently, right? He kind of tried to use the glove that Michael Jackson would kind of have. I think he actually auctioned it off, or he got it, or something of that sort. I mean, when it comes to Drake, I know of him at like a surface level, it's not like someone that I've done like super deep dive in terms of research and so on and so forth, but I know enough about him as an individual, as he popped up on my feed and he's always in the news and so on and so forth. But you know what's wild? The song that I had stuck in my head out of all of his songs was literally Hotline Bling, and that's why I was like, I need to get this reading out like today. Today is August 11th, by the way, when I'm recording this. Let's see by the time I will end up editing this. I'm trying to be faster, okay, with the edits, especially over here on this channel. Like I mentioned, this is my second channel, okay. I'm trying to put out more information out there, okay, for you guys. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of different things over here, including the public figure natal chart readings. Some things you guys request, feel free to, request below, right? If it's someone's energy that I'm already familiar with, probably, I'll be more likely to, do that person first versus somebody else that I actually hook into their energy. I kind of have to hook into the energy of the person, right? And it's so interesting because as I hooked into into Drake's energy already, just like energetically before I even pulled up his chart. I already know he's a Scorpio. And that's the thing when I do these readings too, it's like I sense it in the energy field and then I look at the chart and I'm like, okay, that's what's going on. But I'm curious to know about his history. I'm not sure about this part of his past. Maybe some super fans know out there, but like I kind of get the vibe that he was raised by a single mother. Anyways, when anybody is a Scorpio, the feminine, right? Usually the mother is usually the dominant parent in the household regardless, okay? She kind of usually takes over, or at least her energy takes over, okay? Her energetic imprint. So getting into the astrology here for Drake, I have him here as a sun in Scorpio 3rd house. Moon is in Cancer in the 11th house. That moon in Cancer is really interesting to me. He's got a bunch of Scorpio here, okay? So he's got Mercury in Scorpio 4th house. Venus is in Scorpio 3rd house, retrograde. Also, Pluto is in Scorpio in that 3rd house as well, okay? Now, I will tell you guys, I look up to 10 degrees of an orb. I know it's pretty wide. Some people are super strict with the orbs, okay? They only look up to the super tight orbs. And honestly, if it catches my attention and I'm feeling it in the energy fields, okay, I will open up the orb all the way up to 15 degrees, okay? So that's the way that I do it, okay? And again, it's mostly because I'm feeling into the energy first, right? Versus maybe, again, the super, technical, traditional way that other people do it. So first thing that I'm seeing in his chart here, actually, okay, that I didn't see before is he has a grand trine going on. Look at this. Grand trine going on with the moon in Cancer, okay? And then he's got his Jupiter, which is a retrograde, by the way, in Pisces. And then it goes all the way to his Pluto in Scorpio. Wow, what a powerful grand trine here. And that's what I wanted to mention about his Scorpio placements, okay? Some of these things in here are conjunct, some are too wide to be conjunct. I'll be going over, all of the energies here. But look at this, grand trine, he's into music. He's right where he needs to be, right? Grand trine in water, okay? So feelings, emotions, music, right? Super intuitive, super psychic. What's interesting about Drake's energy field, and by the way, you guys, okay, gotta always give my disclaimers, okay? All of this information is for educational purposes only, okay? It is, of course, alleged based on my own interpretations of the energy. Of course, I don't know these people when I do the readings on them, okay? So it's just me looking at the energy overall. If there is something that I mentioned in here, and maybe you guys have it in your charts, or when I'm doing the synastry readings, if it happens in the synastry reading chart, it doesn't always have to play out that way, right? Because to me, this is a form of divination even, right? I'm hooking into the energy. Yes, it can mean one thing, but then sometimes it connects me to something else in the chart, and that's kind of how I come up with my conclusions, right? Definitely more intuitive based in terms of looking at the energies here, okay? So again, sometimes these things can mean something, right, for you in your chart as well, and sometimes it might not, because there could be something else going on in the chart that could either cancel out the energy and so on and so forth, right? At the end of the day, like the grand water trine is a grand water trine, right? Everybody who has a grand water trine is going to be super intuitive, super psychic, super, like, again, connected to their feelings, connected to their emotions. And that's what I always get from Drake, which is so interesting, right? Drake to me always gives me this like sensitive energy, right? Definitely a lover boy. I mean, I'm sure he has, maybe said that in some of his interviews before, but at the same time, right, I always see him around people that are non-committal types of people, which I find to be interesting. This is what I mean, that Mars in Aquarius is strong, because if you look at it in terms of like the Scorpio energy, right, I always go in this case based off of the traditional rulers. I go back to the Mars to see what's going on with the Mars, to see how the Scorpio person is acting, how are they behaving, right? So his Mars is in Aquarius, okay? So his Mars being in Aquarius here, right? That's kind of like the strong energy, right? That is kind of standing out in his chart, even though he's got all the Scorpio, right? It's just this Mars in Aquarius tends to take over. A lot of the time when you see Aquarius, let's say in the personal placements, or even if you have a Uranus aspect in the personal placements, these people always give off a very solitary vibe. Of course, there's always the unconventional aspect connected to it, right? But it's more so the energy of freedom, individuality, wanting to express, wanting to do their own thing, right? Again, all the Scorpio energy in this chart, and again, a lot of this is trining the moon, right, in Cancer, or even trining the Jupiter in Pisces, right? All this water, again, makes him more of a quote-unquote lover boy, right? Someone who is definitely in tune with his feelings, in tune with his emotions, right? And you can kind of sense that vibe off of him, but the Mars in Aquarius is really strong, okay? I find Mars in Aquarius to be sometimes a challenge in people's charts, right? When they have Mars in Aquarius, maybe in their own charts, you can kind of look at this as the core of the person, right? You can look at it as a solar plexus chakra, the core identity even of this individual, right? So in his case, his core identity here, right, is, freedom, right? Is to be individual, is to be independent, is to express himself, is to do his own thing, right? Now here's where it gets interesting. A lot of the time when people have these energies in the chart, again, they give off a solitary vibe. It's almost like they either want to come off like they they are single. I don't think it's like sneaky, because with him, I don't feel sneaky energy from him. Interestingly enough, even though the Scorpio stuff's going on, right? Like I just feel like in his energy field, he's more so someone who is like an independent kind of person, wants to come off just like as himself, right? Even if you look at his name, it's Drake, right? There's no last name, there's nothing going on, right? So it's just like literally like he just wants to be him, right? That's kind of like the vibe here. Probably he wasn't able to express this in a previous lifetime. So I find it interesting, even when, you know, he got that girl pregnant and, you know, he has the kid and all this, right? It's like he, at first, I remember this, they might change the information, but I remember he did not want to claim that kid as if it was his, right? So it's like this whole energy of Aquarius of wanting to maintain the image of like, it's not so much like wanting to maintain the image of being single per se with Aquarius. It's more so just like wanting to maintain their own individuality. Like they don't want attachments connected to them, right? So it's really interesting to me that he's got all this other Scorpio energy going on, right? He's got Sun in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio, and Pluto in Scorpio. Okay, it's really interesting. Okay, the Mars for him squares the Pluto. I was looking at that yesterday too when I pulled up the chart. Okay, this is kind of what pushed him forward, right? This is the energy of, you know, win at all costs. It's at 1 degree. Okay, so, and it's a square, right? So when you have a square, especially Mars square Pluto taking place in a chart, you could experience either power struggles with men, and already he's got this going on with the Sun too. He's got Sun conjunct Pluto as well. It's gonna be power struggles with men for some people when they're younger. It could just be like aggression coming from men, especially the square, any sort of Pluto to Mars, like again, in terms of like the square conjunction or the opposition. Okay, there will be some form of aggression coming from men, but at the same time, because he's the man, he could play this out as well, right? So he could have this aggression going on too. And kind of what I was telling you guys recently on one of my lives, and something that I've been thinking about too, and pretty sure I recorded it in one of my other videos that I'll be posting, but let's see which, you know, videos I end up posting first, right? In terms of the order of things. Basically what I was talking about was when someone has a lot of anger internally, right? You basically want to take that anger and you want to kind of turn it into passion, right? And he even has this squaring the Sun too, this Mars, right? So this Mars kind of like the focal point, right? It's like just the way that I see it psychically, it just like stands out to me, and like it kind of creates all these squares, okay, with everything else. Not to mention this is the ruler of all of his Scorpio energy, goes back to this Mars, right? And then the Mars squares the Pluto. He does have Mars sextile Saturn, right? This is someone who's willing, you know, to sit down, work, put in the work. You know, this is good work ethic. It's a sextile, right? It's a little bit more subtle, again, right? Something that you don't have to work too hard to activate, right? But, you know, again, someone who is business minded. Okay, I'm curious to know, like, with Drake, if he has other business ventures going on. I'm not sure why. Yesterday when I was looking into his energy, I was looking into like water bottles or like vitamins or like vitamin water or something of that sort. So I'm curious to know if that's either something that he already has or if this is something that he is like creating or some sort of product, right? So there's something going on with that as well, right? But someone who is business minded, okay? So that's kind of what's going on with that. And again, it's the Mars square Pluto that kind of pushed him into this direction. Okay. Now, the other thing that stands out to me here too, when I pulled up his chart, is the Venus in the third house retrograde. Okay. The fact that it's in the third house and it's retrograde, Sun is in the third, Pluto's in the third too, right? There's a deep desire, right? Especially with this energy being retrograde, to basically come back again and to make money through literally speaking. Okay. The third house is literally speaking, communication. So again, it could be poetry, aka music as well. This is usually like shorter form types of things, right? The other thing that I was looking into when I was looking into his energy as well is he's got a little bit of like a trolling type of energy connected to him. I'm seeing he's got Sun trine Jupiter, right? It's a little bit subtle in the background, Moon trine Jupiter too. It's kind of like an energy where like I feel like he likes to prank people, or like I feel like he likes to troll people. Like that's kind of like the vibe that I was picking up on in his energy field as well. He even has Mercury trine Jupiter, Venus trine Jupiter. Wow, so a lot of trine Jupiter here, okay, is going on in his chart, right? It says Jupiter and Pisces, and it's interesting because Pisces can also be music, right? And it's interesting because this is also retrograde. Jupiter in Pisces, 7th house or retrograde. Okay. So basically he's coming through again, right, in this lifetime, because it's retrograde here, okay, to basically like play out this like either purpose. You can look at it as purpose. Yes, you can look at it as, you know, the desire line, right, to actually be a musician and to actually be a successful musician, right? Because, you know, sometimes some people are either, you know, one hit wonders, or, you know, sometimes it's a challenge for some people to stay popular for longer periods of time, and sometimes eventually start to span generations, right? You know, there's that, right? But with him, you know, he still kind of pops up, you know what I mean? He like, you know, goes off, does his own thing, but he still somehow keeps himself relevant, and it's in such an interesting Scorpio fashion where it's not like overly dramatic types of things, right? He is a Leo rising. I wanted to talk about that as well. The descendant in Aquarius. So he's got Mars in Aquarius and descendant in Aquarius. These are, you know, the alternate relationships, alternative, right? Unconventional, you know, this is again that solitary energy, right? Sometimes awkward with women, right? I will say that. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is something that took place in his youth and when he was younger. Now it's interesting when you see Venus and Scorpio in a man's chart, right? Sometimes, and this is all alleged, just my own opinion about Drake per se, right? But in general, in men's charts, right? It kind of can give off the vibe that these men could be attracted to or into women who are a little bit more on that scorpionic, promiscuous side, right? If you guys catch my drift, like bottle girls, you know what I mean? Like this type of vibe. OnlyFans girls, I mean, we've seen him with some of these girls, right? That's his Venus in Scorpio, right? Because again, Venus in Scorpio, it's such a huge range, this energy, honestly, right? Because again, Scorpio is all about who they connect with at the end of the day. But in a man's chart, sometimes if I see either Venus in Scorpio or Mars in Scorpio, there's definitely, always an attraction to or an interest either in sex workers, again, OnlyFans girls, like whatever, right? Whatever the name is, right? So basically it's this, okay? So, and we've seen him with some of these people, right? He's popped up on my feed with some of these individuals. He kind of has them around him, right? So that's his Venus in Scorpio, which I find really interesting because, there was an interview that he had with somebody on a couch. I think this was maybe sometime last year, and it was popping up on my feed, and just like listening to him talk and listening to him speak is just so interesting because I see so much water in him. The other thing that I was looking into actually yesterday when I was looking into his energy was the critical energy. I'm curious to know. I don't see it, like I only see it in the Mars in the 6th house here, so that could have been like men or masculines that are critical of him, but I was actually picking up on it in terms of like the mother or like feminines in his life. I'm curious to know like what's going on with the father here for him. Were the parents separated? That's kind of the vibe that I get. Maybe they weren't separated, maybe the mother was just like super dominant, but there is an energy here because again, if we again were to open up this orb, again, this would be pretty wide here, right? The sun would be trining the moon as well, which typically means that the parents would technically get along, okay? Is really interesting. But I'm curious to know if like, the mother like left, maybe had another husband. It's interesting. There's something going on here with that as well. I will look into that after as well, okay? His IC even is in Scorpio too. Oh my gosh, he got so much scorpionic energy. It's really interesting to see that he isn't playing out the traditional Scorpio energy, which like, again, Scorpio is, again, yes, a lover individual, but like, wanting to be with, that one person and merging and, all this type of stuff. It's the Mars in Aquarius. Basically takes him out of that energy, okay, is really what's going on here. He's got Saturn in the 4th house. That's pretty challenging too. He was probably parentified from a young age with the Saturn in the 4th house. I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow supports his family or something of that sort, okay, with a Saturn in the 4th house. Uranus in the 4th house too. This would have been unconventional home, unconventional upbringing, okay? So he is a Leo rising 29th degree, okay? It's interesting that his energy is kind of coming up now. Like I was kind of hooking into it because there's all this stuff going on in Leo right now. Right when I'm recording this, it is the solar eclipse and it is in Leo, right? And we had the nodes, shift also to Aquarius and Leo. So that's hitting him, his rising sign too. And we have Pluto in Aquarius, which is opposing his rising sign, or eventually will be opposing, right? When it is eventually 29 degrees. So I do think he's going to go through a lot of change, a lot of transformation, okay, over this next period of time. But I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in the headlines in this next little while, maybe launching another thing. Maybe it's a business or something of that sort because his ascendant is in Leo. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about as well, now this is going to be pretty wide here, okay? About 16 degrees Mars square Mercury, okay? So, we can't fully count it, but I basically was looking for to see, in terms of his attraction to a minor, the younger people, right? Because there's always allegations, going around about that. So, for people who might be attracted to like people who look sometimes younger, maybe they're not actually younger, right? That's typically going to be Mercury to Mars aspects. If you have a Mars in Gemini or maybe Mars in the 3rd house. Now his Mars is in the 6th house. The 6th house energy is also Mercury ruled. So it could be this too, okay? Because again, that 6th house energy, if we look at Virgo energy, which I've spoken about on my, original channel, Barbara Talks. So check out those videos too, where I talked about the rising signs. But again, you can kind of look at it as the archetype for all of the signs. When someone has a dominance of that energy in their chart, right? 6th house, which is Virgo, can also be kind of like angelic or sometimes even youthful or even also sometimes look younger than they are, right? Because it's Mercury ruled, right? So Mars in the 6th house, that actually kind of checks out that he will be attracted to people, not necessarily who are always like age-wise younger, but people who might just look younger, right? So that's interesting that that's actually in the chart as well. He's got a lot of Mars aspects, like I mentioned too. Mars is aspecting the sun, right? So again, it gives him this drive, right? It gives him this energy to like push forward, to kind of actually, get to the end goal. Even the sun conjunct Pluto, okay? But the main thing in his chart is this grand trine that's like pushing him forward is really what it is, because Pluto is literally part of his grand trine, right? So it's like he's got this grand trine, it's including the moon, super intuitive, super psychic, and then that Jupiter retrograde. So literally this is someone who came with this desire line from a past life already, having these like gifts and these abilities, right? Moon in Cancer is interesting, especially in a man's chart. This is usually going to be somebody who is a little bit more on the closed off side, kind of like, again, it's the crab that's like in the home, right? It takes a lot for them to open up, right? And especially trining all of this Scorpio energy. So it's really interesting. He's not playing out like the typical Scorpio energy, like I mentioned earlier as well. It's because, again, Mars is in Aquarius for him, right? So there's a little bit of an unconventional element connected to this, a little bit of separation. And what I've said so many times too is after you overcome the shadows of Scorpio, right? The codependency, fear of abandonment, all those like manipulation tactics and so on and so forth, right? And you have Aquarius in your chart, and if you activate the Aquarius energy in your chart or Uranus aspects, right, then you're literally in your full-blown independence, individuality, and it's really hard to go back because it's actually connected to the process of individuation. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm getting in terms of his chart at first glance, right? Someone who is literally living their life purpose, right? In terms of relationships and like romance, it's not something that's really at the forefront. A lot of his energy, I will say, also is energetically cloaked, right? Like there's certain things here that are energetically hidden, but it's fine. I don't have to go into absolutely everything, right? I'm kind of looking at this, generally, like a general overview here. And I do keep hooking even into this Jupiter in the 7th house retrograde, okay? And this doesn't typically mean this, right? When you have Jupiter in the 7th house retrograde, just what is, again, associating me to more so psychically. I do feel like a lot of his relationships are karmic from past lives, right? There's like this energy connected to him where it's just like, again, his independence is like number one, right? He's like really focused on, what his goals are and so on and so forth. So it's interesting. Like he doesn't seem, right? Again, at the end of the day, you don't know in terms of what we see, right? He doesn't seem like he's somewhat problematic. You'd ever hear too much about him, in the headlines and like drama and like, drama with like women, you know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. You don't really hear anything like that with him. So either he's got like really good NDAs going on or like a really good PR team, like whatever it is, right? Because we never hear about him really, right? In terms of, again, when people go through like hardcore things when it comes to relationships. But I do feel like just looking at his chart, there is karma here connected to relationships. It's interesting to me because it's like underneath all of this energy, there is this like dreamer aspect of the self, but I do feel like he's channeled all of that into his music and like kind of playing out maybe fantasies through his like lyrics and his songs and so on and so forth. The other thing that's standing out too that I also wanted to mention in this reading is his North Node. North Node in Aries, 9th house retrograde. That means his South Node would be in Libra and it would be in the 3rd house retrograde. That's really interesting to me because again, here is this like karmic pattern that's coming like around him, or like, again, if you guys don't believe in past lives, you can look at it as the earlier part of this lifetime too, right? This karmic pattern connected to relationships, interestingly enough, okay? This is really interesting to me because it's like, it's really happening in the background. Again, I just keep feeling like it's not at the forefront. It's not something that he focuses on, right? It's not something that he like really like wants to get too involved with, like especially like drama, because I do feel like maybe in a past life that was something that held him back from speaking or speaking his truth. So I think he just like it doesn't go there. I think he just kind of keeps it light. Again, even though he's a Scorpio, Scorpios are deep at the end of the day. Maybe it's even the people that are in the industry, you know what I mean? He's just probably seen so many of these types of individuals, right? Where he might just think that everyone is kind of surface level and kind of just like left it at that. Interestingly enough, his Chiron is in the 10th house, also retrograde, healing through the public, okay? And the wound here is his throat chakra, and the Lilith is really close here too, okay? So these two are kind of traveling together, the Lilith and the Chiron, both in Gemini, both in the 10th house. This is interesting to me because it's like, again, I keep getting this energy of like unfulfilled dreams from a past life of speaking and throat chakra. I'm also hooking into, because it's Pluto's in the 3rd house, maybe when he was younger and he was in school, maybe he was bullied for like speaking or the way he talks, or again, maybe he, let's say, for example, random example here, but let's say maybe he wanted to be part of a choir and then got rejected. It's very much an energy where it's like the wound is there, but he's like healing the wound because he like pushed through to like almost prove to himself, right, that he could open up that throat chakra, right? So it's something that he's cleared is really what it is, or at least is a clearing, right? In this lifetime, you guys can look at it that way as well, okay? So that's kind of what I have for you guys here in terms of Drake's chart. Really, really interesting, right? I do see this as someone who is kind of playing out their chart, fulfilling their life purpose, someone who carried over, this desire line from a past life, right, to complete this, to clear this out, right, to actually, activate this and achieve this. I do think he's super intuitive, probably super psychic too, okay? But I don't think he, is overly open with that. For example, I do think, again, he puts it in his music, maybe again, catching into the collective's unconscious, that Pluto energy, right? The collective's unconscious, right? And what's going to be popular and trends, because Mars in Aquarius also is, someone who is even sometimes a visionary, they're ahead of their time. They, catch certain trends before the rest of the collective. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see him go more in the direction of of, again, either creating products. I'm even seeing like running shoes. Okay. So I'm not sure if that's something that he's interested in or maybe already has, right? Like something of this sort. Okay. Where he kind of like, goes into a little bit of a different direction where he's like launching these other types of businesses. And just going back to the North Node in Aries in the ninth house, this is interesting to me because his life purpose is literally connected to literally like the self, like literally finding the self, doing your own thing, being your own person. And it's interesting because it's in the ninth house. That's that international energy, right? It's the Sagittarius house, like almost to like teach people to, this can be a spiritual lifetime, absolutely, right? But it's more so like sometimes even like a motivational speaker, right? It's like a larger than life personality, which he does have in his energy field, interestingly enough. Okay, as I'm hooking into this, to me, he was always somebody that was kind of like there, but like when I think about it, it's like, no, he's been there for a while. He's someone who has managed to somehow keep himself irrelevant, okay, in one way, shape, or form. So that's kind of what I'm hooking into here for Drake, okay. I hope you guys enjoyed my reading on him. So again, if you guys would like your own reading, you guys can send me an email. Make sure you guys subscribe to both channels, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day or evening wherever you are. Bye.